Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. The Lakers had their first win of the season, 121-118, in a super exciting game against Memphis Grizzlies on Sunday. Carmelo Anthony with a big milestone. Russell Westbrook has his best game as a Laker. Lots to break down. We'll do it next on Locked On Lakers.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Want to thank everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. We got this thing up for you. Really appreciate all of the support we've been getting. Again, if you're up early, listen to this thing. We get it up as close to midnight on the West Coast as we can. So, Andy, on Sunday night, the Lakers, they've said they're not frustrated, that they're not pushing past it. They really wanted to win on Sunday. You could tell that the fact that they hadn't won was starting to bug them, and they got one. 121-118 over the Memphis Grizzlies Sunday night at home at the Staples Center. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't uniformly pretty, but it was a win against a team that's playing well, and I think everybody will take it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned before the idea of wanting that win and the frustration. Friday's loss, 48 hours before that against Phoenix, it's not just that they lost the game by a pretty good margin. From about the second quarter onward, this is a veteran team that lost their composure over and over and over. I mean, and not just AD and Dwight Howard having that scuffle, on the sideline where AD put his hands on Dwight and they had to be separated. It was over a blown coverage. They said they squashed it all, whatever. But the point being, though, that wasn't even the only time where they lost their composures. They were constantly bitching at the refs. They were constantly complaining about no calls.
You had the sequence where LeBron didn't even cross half court for like an hour because he was so angry about a non-call.
And that to me, in terms of Friday and then comparing to Sunday's win, but also to like the idea of them recognizing we need to get on the positive side of things. It's one thing to lose, and they're still at a stage where they're figuring things out. It's another thing to be as experienced as these guys are and frankly lose your shit that early on in a game. And they had a really in-depth, long film session on Saturday that everybody said, yeah, it was necessary. And there were a lot more positives in this win on Sunday, however imperfect at times. And it was really good to see. It felt like an incremental step forward.
And I think, and we'll get to spend a little more time on kind of what this is going to look like here in a second. And obviously a lot more time on Carmelo Anthony, who had a huge, huge night for the Lakers and himself in terms of personal milestones. But just to, kind of elaborate, I think, on what you're saying, like I was worried that in the second half, the Lakers played a really good first half, the best half of basketball I think they played in the three games. Memphis made, though, a little bit of a run, at the end of the first half. They took a 10-point lead and it got it down to like 6 or whatever it was at halftime, killed a little bit of that momentum and did some stuff. And then over the course of the second half, Memphis took a lead. Memphis, got like a lot of stuff was happening where in my mind, I was like, are they going to hold up? How are they going to respond? Are they going to get a stop when they need it? Are they going to be able to find a bucket when they need it? And to lose this game it's the third game of the season. I'm sure you and hopefully others understand. I'm not saying it's over. But to lose this game would build in a negative way on what happened on Friday. And because you're not being able, you're not responding like the way you want, you're not able to execute in the stretch, whatever it might be. But instead they got buckets. They weren't always the best way of doing it. And they weren't necessarily things you would want to rely on. The Lakers went nuclear. It's pronounced nuclear. I can't say the word. But, Carmelo Anthony hit 6 of his 8 threes. They hit 10 3-pointers in the second half, before the fourth quarter was even done. Like, these are not things you want to rely on. Some of these were really difficult shots, but they got some buckets. and they got some stops. It was a good, and Memphis is a good team. Like,
yeah,
I'm okay.
Memphis is a good team. Ja Morant had a 40-point, 10-assist night. He was absolutely unstoppable in this game. I actually felt really bad for him because he had the opportunity to put to put the Grizzlies in a tie situation. He got fouled by Kent Bazemore really late with on a 3, and he hit the first 2 free throws, missed the third, and I was like, man, I'm torn between wanting the Lakers to win, but not wanting this for Ja. I mean, he is maybe my favorite young player in the league. He's
insanely entertaining.
Yeah, he's fearless. He is fun. He's one of the few guys that, like, I'm not even going future Laker on #future Laker. Like, I want that dude to stay in Memphis, help build that team up, get all the local giraffes at the zoo. Like, I want everything for him because he's awesome. The Lakers turned the ball over 18 times. They got crushed on the boards 49-36. In particular, they allowed Memphis to get a lot of second chances. And that's something I know we're going to end up talking about either in this show or tomorrow's show.
Whether on this one or through the course of the week.
The rebounding and, sort of what you expect to get, don't get at times from DeAndre and Dwight. Like, there were a lot of things the Lakers had to overcome, but at the same time, you mentioned what Melo did during this game. 28 points off the bench, led all Lakers in scoring. Anthony Davis's defense was at times
insane. It was
DPOY.
Oh, caliber. Yeah. I mean, that was that level. We've talked about, what does it look like when he cranks it up to the making plays on the perimeter with recovery blocks and steals and all this other stuff. And to that point, Andy, to some degree, this is what it's going to require for the Lakers to beat good teams, at least, or hopefully it's not required, when they play Houston a couple times and Oklahoma City and even San Antonio on Tuesday. But, Anthony Davis, who was really good throughout, period, was transcendent defensively at the end. I'm not relying on Carmelo Anthony to get 28 points, hit 6 of 8. But tonight, Sunday night, he was excellent. They got excellent individual performances to kind of push them over and overcome the aspects of the team game that still aren't working and shouldn't be expected to be working yet. If they can do that, again, steal some games against good teams, they'll win enough that they're not going to bury themselves in the standings. It's not going to be problematic. But, it's not ideal, but that's kind of where they are right now, where they need the talent to overcome some of the structural things that they're just not there yet.
Look, they built this team, let's be honest, like a bunch of star effers. And this is an organization that their DNA, for largely better, but occasionally worse, depending which seasons you're talking about, they have a star effort DNA. And we talked about how when they traded for Russell Westbrook, there is an upside that you can imagine, but they made this more complicated, arguably, than necessary. As you put it, it's the equivalent of that's a lot of house. Like the house that the Lakers are looking to build this season is an awful lot of house, and arguably,
right. Can you furnish it in time? Can you make it good for entertaining? There's a lot to do.
But to your point, though, in terms of having to rely on star performances, and there were elements of superstar moments from Anthony Davis on both sides of the ball, from LeBron at times on both sides of the ball, even Russell Westbrook as a playmaker. He had 4 steals. You bring in superstars specifically to give you superstar moments. That's the whole point. And, at times you're going to feel too reliant on them and you're going to wonder if it's sustainable, and maybe it won't be. But on the other hand, again, that is why you bring them in the first place. That is why these guys, are basically a 3-man luxury tax. That's why
it's the reason that you have 9 new players on the team is because you have to fill everything else or a 9 or 10 or whatever it is.
But in theory, that's why you do it. That's why it's worth it.
All right. So, look, let's stick on Russ here, because Russ is indicative of one of the things that did, that you do feel a little bit better coming out of this game. It's the best that he's played of the 3. And admittedly, low bar to clear, I understand that. but they did some different things with him that showed some potential. They did a couple different things with the lineup that showed some potential in terms of finding more meaningful minutes for Austin Reeves. And obviously, we're going to talk a lot about Melo before the show's over. We'll do all that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Prize Picks. NBA fanatics, have you heard about Prize Picks? It is daily fantasy made easy. Prize Picks has the best NBA DFS prop game on the market, more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator, and offers all superstar players as well as bench players, only recording a handful of minutes per game. Everybody that deposits and uses the promo code NBA will receive a 100% instant match up to $100. That is a sweet deal. You can pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections. You can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. Prize Picks also allows mixed sports entries. You can get the over on LeBron, whatever, combined with the under for Mahomes, whatever. Definitely want to take the under for Mahomes.
Yeah, both of those things actually, like the over on LeBron feels like a bad. Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, I'm saying that specifically because I know Brian has Mahomes on his fantasy team and we're competing against you this weekend, so trying to rub that in a little bit. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com. Use the promo code NBA or go to your App Store today. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy.
Hey, does this sound familiar to you, Andy? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another lets you stream your favorite shows, and you're watching sports highlights on your phone. You've got your neighbor's best friend's login for all the other stuff. I'm going to tell you, Andy, about a way to get your TV together without all the hassle. It's much more simple. It's called DirecTV Stream. Brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes, no more need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more about it at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. A compatible device is required and content varies by package. Russell Westbrook, Andy, you mentioned the stats: 13 points, 13 assists, 4 steals. He had 7 rebounds. He did turn the ball over 9 times. So again, it's not perfect what we're talking about here.
He just wants to match his preseason glory.
That's right. And he was 5-15 from the floor. So again, we got a lot of room between where Westbrook is now, where he was on Sunday, even in what looked like his best game, and where the Lakers hope he can be. But that said, I thought in the first half particularly, they found more ways to get him going downhill. Westbrook was, I think, much more comfortable as a distributor. They pushed much better, particularly early, into the end of that first quarter, into the second, and allowing Russ to do what he does best, which is get the team moving quicker. And so he had his best moments, I think, as a Laker on Sunday. Again, lots of room to grow, but at least was encouraging.
Yeah, this was the most comfortable I think Russ has looked over the 3 regular season games that they've had. And I thought incrementally, before Phoenix, when everybody, again, just started losing their composure, Russ included, though I did joke that Friday it almost felt like, okay, Russ is feeling comfortable because he got a technical, that you almost wonder if that's him just feeling more like himself because Russ gets a ton of them. But he started looking, I think, more like Russell Westbrook, albeit a version that still isn't quite there. One thing, though, that I did notice that's been good for a team that, ultimately they are built to have their strengths in the paint, not just purely in transition, but looking to set up baskets there. He is so far, I think, not just the best among the playmakers at setting up big men or other guys just at the basket. He's the guy that looks to do it the most.
Well, yeah, look, I mean, Westbrook has a history of making very effective, providing very good numbers and effective play to relatively ordinary centers. Like,
right, but I mean,
guys, and add him to AD.
Right.
And,
I mean, and
it should work.
He set up AD inside, but he also had successful setups for DeAndre Jordan inside. Yep. He had a really good bounce pass setup for Dwight that got him an and one opportunity. Like, he looks for that a lot. And, doing that stuff, by definition means you're doing it in tight quarters. That's going to sometimes means turnovers. He's also a guy like LeBron that will look for the home run pass, and sometimes the home run pass will get you a turnover. So, he and LeBron both need to be careful, for a team that's looking to go run in transition as much as possible. Like, you got to make sure that you are picking your spots well, because this is not a team that you want having to get back in transition defense all the time. Like, that's going to kill them.
Well, I mean, in the second half, part of the reason that the Lakers were not nearly as effective as they were, in their best moments the first, is they couldn't run. Like the numbers in this game were bizarre, and the Lakers dominated the first half in points in the paint. They dominated in part because they were dominating in fast break points. All of that flipped in the second half, which is part of the reason I thought they were going to lose, to be perfectly honest, that they would let this game get away, is because they were so half court heavy, and they haven't been very good, but they were just, between Melo and Malik Monk hit one, and Kent Bazemore hit a miracle three, with a hand in his face at the end of the shot clock. And like, they really couldn't miss. They hit over 50% of their threes on the night. And that kept them afloat when they needed it. And then Anthony Davis with some spectacular defense. But the other thing that I do think, if you're trying to find, sort of silver linings with Russ early, is that while the efficiency is terrible, he's shooting 35% from the floor, the volume is about where you want it. By the way, do you know what he's shooting from 3-point percentage?
30 something?
9.
Oh, wow. Okay.
9.
I guess the makes just really stand out.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe the word you're looking for is make. I'll go back and look at the game log.
No, you know what? You're probably right.
I literally just happened to click on that.
Here's
button.
what it was, Brian.
I didn't realize it was that bad either.
This is the thing, and I can just full disclosure. This is how I ended up with 30 something. It felt like you were setting me up for a trick question. Like, he's shooting only 30-something% from the field, but you know what?
It's 35%,
right? I thought we were getting like a Malik Monk thing, where like Malik Monk shoots in the low 40s from the field, but also shoots low 40s from behind the arc.
LeBron tonight shot well from 3-point range.
Yeah.
Inefficient overall. Yeah, he's 1 for 11.
Okay,
yeah, 9. but overall, the efficiency in his shooting is obviously terrible. Like, even by Russell Westbrook standards, 36% is not going to cut it. And 9% from 3-point range.
He is struggling in particular to finish.
Yes, really absolutely. And that can be its own worrying thing. But the volume is about what you like. It's been 13, 15, 15. And I understand Lakers fans would love to see that maybe drop a little bit, and it might over the course of the season. But Russell Westbrook, if you have Russell Westbrook on your team, you expect him to take 12 to 17 shots a game.
I'll do you one better. If Russell Westbrook doesn't take a certain amount of shots, he's going to be a worse version of himself. Like, you don't want a Russell Westbrook that you suddenly start feeling like you don't need to guard at all as a scoring threat. Correct. That's actually a really bad idea.
He took 19, for a frame of reference, he took 19 a game in Washington last year. On this team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, do you want to 19? That's probably a little much. 22, 23, 20, like he did in his heyday. No, but you go back to like the Oklahoma City days where he was around, 16, 17, 18 when he was playing with those guys. Like, that's kind of what you would expect. So if he stays at 14, my point is, Lakers fans, if he stays at 14, like he is buying into the idea of being a cog in this offense. And it's a matter of, like you say, how do I find the best shots for me? The ones that work the best without, like, for example, catch and shoot threes in rhythm, good. Push, try to get downhill, finish at the rim, good. The play that I think where he was most uncomfortable on Sunday that people might have seen was the one where Steven Adams kind of kept backing off of him a little bit, and the Lakers didn't really have any secondary action. He basically just baited Russ into taking such a wide open 14-footer.
If anyone's going to know how to do it, it's Steven Adams, because they played together for years.
But it wasn't like a step into it, kind of that classic Russell Westbrook mid-range thing that at the very least he's confident in. This was one where it's like, okay, I know I really shouldn't shoot here, but I'm looking around and I don't see that's the kind of shot the Lakers are. You hope over the course of the season will be able to iron out. And for the most part, so like it's not all tragic with Westbrook right now. It's just not smooth. But
Yeah.
what they did in the second half, Andy, that I thought was good, and I'll let you, I know you, was they used Russ in different ways. They used him to set screens for LeBron in the pick and roll. And a couple times that led to, a great feed from Westbrook off the pick and roll to Davis. They used Westbrook to screen away from the ball on a pin down to bring up. They're finding other ways to get him to move and spring him and make defenses pay attention to all three of those guys, which is really important.
Yeah, it's also though interesting too because there are a lot of times where it's not even just the three of them; it's two of them, and specifically LeBron and Russ. They have been often playing together at the top of second and fourth quarters without AD out there. At times it's looked good, at times it's been wonky. But like I'm really glad to see them working through all of this stuff in real time. Like you and I were talking about this before the show, like what they're dealing with right now, where you see the cracks in the foundation. You see the things that don't work. Like it's the equivalent of a dress rehearsal in theater or like the soft opening of a restaurant. Like this is where they're at. It's a complicated show or I guess eatery that they're looking to put on. And like you're going to
whatever metaphor you want. These are
you're
hard things to get
you're
right
gonna have to
on
deal
day
with this
one.
stuff.
Right.
But along those lines, like I remember like a week or so ago, you and I were having a conversation where you said that you didn't expect to see LeBron and Russ play together much without Anthony Davis, and I didn't agree. And
Well, what I said was I expected them to play when they're split up. I expect LeBron and what I expect is you will see more minutes with LeBron and AD and Westbrook and AD than you will see with Westbrook and LeBron without AD.
right, but so far we're actually seeing a fair amount of minutes.
You're seeing some. I didn't think it would never happen.
Right,
But
but
you're going to see more of the other stuff.
it's been a decent chunk of minutes though, and I bring this up not to like get into who's right or
No, it's
wrong about
important
it.
that I'm right.
Well, you're not. You're actually pretty damn wrong.
I'm not good at looking up who's on the floor when the other guy isn't. That's hard for me.
Yeah, I know, especially when it turns out you were dead ass wrong. But
We'll see.
the reason though that I bring it up though is I'm glad that they're doing it. Like I'm glad that they are going through what is obviously going to be the hardest thing, figuring out the synergy between LeBron and Westbrook, because you have to be able to make the two of them work as a tandem on their own merits. And like I remember when the trade went down, hearing a lot of people talk about how Frank Vogel's likely just going to stagger them a lot and, like minimize the time that you would have LeBron and Russ on the floor together. And my reaction was, no, that's not what's going to happen because that undercuts the point of doing it. And that's also the type of strategy that if you look to do that during the regular season, I think does make them really vulnerable to adjustments in the playoffs. Like if this is going to work with the two of them, it's going to work. If it's not going to work, you can't paper over it with half measures. So
I think it's one of these deals where both of those things have to be right. Like fundamentally the most important thing is the three of them working together.
Sure,
and
of course.
Can you make it? And we saw a lot of that off ball screening action, all this stuff was involving all three of them. Obviously, you want to be able to use Russ to lighten the load on LeBron. Hopefully, and a lot of that means those minutes that LeBron doesn't play can be a little bit longer and more productive because you have somebody like Westbrook to be able to orchestrate things. But I think you are correct but it can't be that where you avoid.
I was going to say, if you are looking to avoid playing two of your three superstars together, it won't work.
Right.
Period.
That I 100%, like, it can't be to the exclusion of it. It just
Right.
needs to be.
So,
do I think ultimately the weighting in the 2 of 3 is going to look the way I do? And, somebody out there can do the math and see where we're standing right now and all that. Ultimately, yeah, I think that's what the weighting is going to be. But those two guys, absolutely 100% agree with you. Those two guys have to be able to play together without AD on the floor. They have to be able to do that as well. And especially since they're going to be games where AD doesn't play. So it's like, and you got to be able to function in those games. One guy, I think we'll probably save Austin Reeves for Tuesday's show because he's got in 2 games that he's played, Andy, small sample size. His net rating is almost 59 on a team with a negative net rating. Did some
Whatever.
really
Analytics are for losers, Brian.
I know. Did some really good stuff on Sunday that is worth talking about. But the real star of the show tonight, in terms of legacy, in terms of just impact play, was Carmelo Anthony. And we talked about the 6 of 8 from 3-point range. We talked about the 28 points. It was a spectacular night, a historic night for Carmelo Anthony. We'll talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Built Bar, the best tasting protein bars ever, covered in 100% chocolate, soft, easy to chew, and healthy. They're great for the health conscious folks out there, whether you're trying to lose weight, maintain weight, but you still want something that tastes great, low calorie, low sugar, high protein, high fiber. Keto folks, dive into these, especially because they still taste great. As always, you got the original flavors, including coconut, raspberry, coconut almond, salted caramel, banana bread, new flavors like cherry barcia, lemon almond cheesecake, cookies and cream. They just awesome taste combinations, unique, different. You will never feel like you are bored eating the same thing over and over. So go to BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCK15. You get 15% off your first order. Again, promo code LOCKed15, 15% off at BuiltBar.com.
This episode also brought to you by RockAuto.com. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's impossible for your local auto chain parts store to stock everything that you need. And why endure pointless and seemingly intimidating questions about whether your car is an LX, an EX, an IX, an OX, whatever, and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts in their computer, choosing the brand that maybe they want you to buy instead of the one that you really need. You have your own computer. You have one in your pocket. You have one at home. You go to RockAuto.com, and you're going to spend 30, 50, even 100%. You're not going to spend that extra premium that the chain store or the car dealership is charging you. Example: Honda Odyssey fuel pump, $353 from a chain store, $216 from RockAuto.com. It's a family-owned business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, reliably low prices for every customer, including do-it-yourselfers. So you go to RockAuto.com right now, see all the parts available for your car, truck, right Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. So Sunday night, Andy, as we mentioned earlier in the show, the Lakers won essentially because they got some transcendent star-like performances from stars. And you may not expect it from Carmelo Anthony, but he had a turn back the clock kind of night where he looked like a star player. And I don't know if they're going to get 2 more games like this, 5 more games, or 10 more games like this, but they got one on Sunday, and it helped them win. And it was a particularly great night for Melo because it was, it allowed him not only to help the Lakers get their first win of the season, to make himself that much more popular with the home crowd, but it also bumped him up past Moses Malone into 9th, correct, in the all-time NBA scoring list. All of these things put together made for a great Sunday for Carmelo.
Yeah, I mean, Melo just had a monster performance off the bench, 28 points, 10 of 15 from the field, 6 of 8 from behind the arc. Melo even had a transition basket set up by Malik Monk, of all people, when they were on the run. But
when you think Lakers fast break, you think Carmelo Anthony to Malik Monk to Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, it's the new Showtime. Plus, Melo even had 2 blocks. And it's interesting to say that too. Not just the idea that Melo has not now nor ever been known for his defense, but nights like these, Melo closed. When Melo is this hot, you will look past all of his defensive shortcomings. You will come up with a lineup where you can cover for him in whatever configurations are necessary, because he can become that transcendent a scorer. Like, the thing about Melo and guys like of his stature, no matter how old they are, we saw this with Kobe, not just like in the last couple seasons leading up to the Achilles tear, where he was still Kobe, but he was starting to show a little bit more relative vulnerability. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm talking about post Achilles, where Kobe was nowhere close to the guy that he was. You would still see defenders fight the urge to throw the double team at him. Even though at times, like, to be totally honest, there were nights where he didn't even need that hard of a single team, because
it's like, why are you even devoting your best, and a lot of times you started to see teams would stop guarding him with their best player. But there's a certain muscle memory that's built into that.
It is Kobe. Like, Kobe as much as Kobe will go at times on he would go on these insane 3-point jags, like, where he'd hit like 8 or 9, like almost in a row. He set at one point a record for 12. I don't remember if it was consecutive, but it was certainly 12 in a game. The reality is Kobe on his career was an average to below average 3-point shooter.
Mm-hmm.
But again, he's Kobe Bryant. So you will never leave him open in the same way that Anthony Davis has never been a great 3-point shooter, but he's Anthony Davis. So you will never leave him open there. Carmelo Anthony could be playing this game at almost age 50. He's Carmelo. Especially if he has a shot going, you will always guard him.
Right, but the difference is, Andy, the way that Melo plays. And look, there are a couple shots where you go, on any other night, do I really want like some heat check moments for Carmelo? And whatever, turn back the clock, feeling it, all that stuff. Where you hope over the course of the season, these are not what he's going to be taking normally. But I said at the beginning of the season, there's one guy on this team that I expect that I would bank on shooting 40% from 3-point range this year, and he's the only one.
Yep.
I think they've got guys who can come close. Certainly LeBron's shooting early this year, as it was early last year. If
Ellington's in the rotation, he's a guy that could do it.
He could. Malik Monk did it last year. He could. Kent Bazemore did it last year. He could. I'm not saying Melo is the only one who is capable.
But he's the only guy that you feel like will. That's the difference.
Correct. And so the difference between what you're talking about is, with whether it's Kobe, whether it's AD, who I think teams are starting to lay off of a lot more now from 3-point range, and
they still got to fight it. They still got to fight it. To some degree. But also, too, the problem with AD, too, is that, you have to respect his ability to put the ball on the floor. So you can't really leave him alone in that way. But you have to go guard Carmelo Anthony on the perimeter now, because he's made himself such a good catch and shoot player that he's got legitimate gravity in terms of how he does things. And most of his shots now, the bulk of his field goal attempts are 3-pointers. And, that is what a good Carmelo balance ought to be. Last year in Portland, took 10 shots a game. I'm sorry, in the post, I'm looking at postseason 6. In the regular season, he took 5 of his 11 shots a game were 3-pointers. In the postseason, that shrank, that range shrank. It was over 6 3-pointers a game against 10 field goals. This year, he's taken almost 12 field goals a game. 6 of them are threes. That's what he is now. And that is high volume 3-point shooting. And you have to respect it because he's good at it. He's developed into a really, really good 3-point shooter. And to that degree, it's going to keep him on the floor, particularly right now with the way the Lakers are defensively. It's is Melo optimal there? No, but it's not like they have this awesome closing defensive lineup that they're clinging to. It's also too,
that, you're giving up by putting Melo on the floor late. That doesn't exist either.
Guys who can get that hot and teams that need scoring like that. Jamal Crawford, by his own admission, was an awful defender. We've had conversations with Jamal. He is he's an awesome dude, but will also be.
He sticks up for himself a little bit more than maybe the rest of us do, but he is not pretending you got to read between. No, he's that's not really my jam.
Right, exactly. But Jamal Crawford would close high leverage games with the Clippers, during playoff runs and stuff like that, because he's a scorer that you will never ignore. And as long as a guy like that has it going and you can figure out relative ways to paper over those defensive weaknesses, you keep him out there on the floor.
And look, it eventually reaches a place with a guy like Crawford where the returns are, of course, obviously diminishing. He can't do it anymore. That's why he left the league before he wanted to. And I don't expect this necessarily to be something they use from Carmelo all the time when the roster's healthy.
Me neither.
Yeah, but it was really and the other thing about this is it gets to, and you see the fan reaction on Sunday. You see, we had one of the things we did a show about in the offseason was which of these new guys do you expect to be a fan favorite? Now, this is, of course, before any of us knew really about Austin Reeves. It was a bit of a game changer there. But the real answer to that question, I thought, over the summer was Carmelo Anthony. And I think the answer is still Carmelo Anthony.
Oh, yeah.
he is so incredibly likable and so incredibly easy to cheer for at this point in his career. And I don't care if you're not a Laker fan. Like if you sit and you listen to the way he talks about basketball and the way he talks about his career and the process of burying enough ego to be able to become and find joy in being a bench player and the challenge, giving himself the challenge of being able to do it. And just, is a guy who's got so many things to say on so many different topics, and it's awesome. It's just there are people that we talk to around the league when they were interested in Melo that signed him. He's like you guys, people don't understand because they get caught up in what got him out of the league for a little while, and the controversy around whether he was a good enough two-way player and a champion. Blah, blah, blah. Like, the dude is solid, and there's a reason that every locker room he's ever in loves him.
Yeah,
and we are seeing that, and I think fans are seeing it. And if the Lakers are able to win a title, a lot of the excitement from fans is going to be in seeing Melo have an opportunity to win.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned how he's just an interesting, smart guy with like a wide range of things that he is into doing. Years ago, it is at least, I don't know, 10, a dozen years ago, you and I did a freelance assignment for ESPN the magazine where we wrote a piece about him teaming up with Gene Simmons from Kiss, because they what did they bought it like a car.
I think it was an IRL team.
Yeah, they sponsored a car in IRL, like a race, like a team. Like they were becoming the co-owners of this thing together. Right. And this was Melo really early in his career. It may have even been longer than like a dozen years ago. It could have been closer to like 15 or whatever. But it was interesting to have sort of our first entry into like a long form conversation with Melo, having it be something so unrelated to basketball, because he's somebody that
2006.
Yeah, he's somebody that's really had
15 years ago.
So many different interests. Like, he was one of the first guys who really started getting into like tech ventures and things like that, like starting to like diversify his portfolio, so to speak. And after this game, like he talked about how he made a bit of a joke, how the guys gave him the game ball, because he passed Moses Malone and asked him to make a speech. And he said he was too tired. And post-game talking with us, he's sitting out there with like a to-go cup of tea. You could see like the tea bag, the string hanging out from there. And just like, he's an old man. Like, he's an old man with stories now. Like, he's an old man who is still an effective basketball player, still a really crafty scorer. You got to make sure that you play him to his strengths. But he's a really interesting dude. And we get the opportunity to see those interesting sides of him. It's no mistake that he and LeBron James and Chris Paul and Dwayne Wade are such close friends. It's not just because they're four of the best basketball players to ever walk the planet and they're now all officially part of the top 75. They're all really interesting dudes with like a lot of different things that they want to have. They want to have their impressions on. They want to be a part of. People like that gravitate towards each other.
And more in tonight in The Lakers Are Old, it's worth noting that LeBron played against Zaire Williams, who played high school ball with Bronny. So he's now officially
Dwayne Wade's kid too.
Yeah, he's officially playing against kids who played with his son in high school. So they're old. They're not making this up. So again, lots more to talk about with Sunday's win. Looking at what is a very critical stretch of games upcoming for the Lakers, starting on Tuesday in San Antonio. But if the Lakers are going to win some games, they're going to need to win the next few. So we'll talk about that. A lot to cover this week. Thanks again for subscribing to Locked On Lakers on YouTube. And again, making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day. See you guys on Tuesday.